Welcome to this Conversations on Groong episode. Lebanon has been under attack for the last couple of days by Israel, and hundreds have died. We wanted to discuss the situation on the ground, so we have with us Yeghia Tashjian in Beirut. Thanks for jumping on our show on such short notice, Yeghia.
Hello, Asbed. Hello, Hovik again.
Well, Yeghia, the BBC reports that nearly 500 people have been killed by Israeli airstrikes on South Lebanon, and Israel claims to be hitting, of course, Hezbollah fighters and strongholds. But of course, all the images of civilians that we see maimed or killed make us doubt that assertion. The attack comes on the heels of the latest warfare tactic from Israel, which is, exploding pagers and cellular devices and other electronic equipment, which indicates that there's been a major compromise of supply chains, and essentially people are walking with booby traps on them. Let's begin with the 50,000-foot view. What is the end goal of Israel? I mean, do you believe that this is going to be limited in terms of the attacks?
Thank you, Hovik. Well, maybe my answer will be a bit long, but to start. So, the situation, as you said, has significantly escalated after the cyber terror attacks. For me, of course, this was something new. I'm not a cyber expert. So that were conducted by Israel against Hezbollah, but also civilians. We have also always have to mention that a lot of civilians were injured and killed. And then we had the air raid in Beirut southern suburbs, killing Hezbollah officers, and then dozens of civilians, including children, and also the heavy bombardment in South Lebanon, and also in Bekaa, which is the eastern area of Lebanon bordering Syria. Starting September 21, there were also heavy cross-borders attacks on, and also Hezbollah launched or retaliated with rocket attacks against Israeli positions. So, assessing Hezbollah Secretary Sayyid Hassan Nasrallah's televised speech a few days ago, he made clear that there is no ceasefire on the horizon. From Hezbollah's perspective, I'm saying, as long as there is no ceasefire in Gaza. So basically, this is like another front against Israel. So everything, I think, is dependent also to the negotiations around Gaza, which have led to stalemate. So now, to some extent, there is also like indirect talks and back-channel diplomatic talks in New York because there is the UN General Assembly summit. However, I'm not sure that Israel will agree on a compromise, depending. So basically, what now the French delegation, they were here. What the French are trying to do is that to pass a UN Security Council resolution backing the 1701 resolution, which was agreed upon in 2006, which called for ceasefire between Lebanon and Israel during the war. And the question is that maybe this would be a difficult situation for Hezbollah because they cannot go against the resolution, but at the same, so basically they have to accept the facts on the ground. And also from Israeli perspective, it's also important that they have to respect the resolution, though we have seen that starting 2006, almost on daily basis, there were violations by the Israeli side, especially in our space. So now what is going on actually? So because I was giving an interview today there was a webinar by an Indian institution. I provide this argument about the conventional when it comes to conventional army versus a guerrilla organization. So the war bit is different. It's not like two regular armies are fighting each other. So in such a war, actually, it becomes longer and it becomes bloodier. And this is why I think that we are heading to a war of attrition. So basically, first, let's define what Israel's objectives are, at least the defined ones. That is to return back the settlers to North Israel and also create a buffer zone in South Lebanon. So that is to push Hezbollah from the south. Hezbollah's, balance, or the idea is actually to create a balance of terror, or what we say, a balance of fear. However, this balance actually is not working, is not sustainable, especially given the recent Israeli attacks against Hezbollah. So Hezbollah should create a new balance in order to deter Israeli attacks in the future. So this is depends what kind of attacks Hezbollah will engage against Israel, because when Hezbollah is engaging in a limited or calculated attack against Israel, Israel's perspective is that, okay, so basically Hezbollah is weakened, we can bomb anywhere. Whereas if Hezbollah, for example, increases its retaliation with heavy and targeted retaliation, now there would be two options. Either Israel would say that, okay, we have a balance, let's de-escalate, or actually they will escalate more. So it's very like a risky situation where both from Hezbollah and Israel, they have risky options to take. And I think in the coming days, everything will be clear to which direction we are heading.
You said one of the stated goals of Israel is to create a buffer zone in southern Lebanon. I assume that is not possible without physical attack.
Yes, and this is very risky because we have this experience in 2006. Israel was not successful when it engaged in land military operation against Lebanon, because let's not forget that South Lebanon and Bekaa, they are mountainous regions, there are a lot of caves, and this is also an advantage of any guerrilla organization, and especially for Hezbollah, who has been trained and experienced, especially in the Syrian war and many wars against Israel. Especially, as I said, guerrilla organization always engages in small unit techniques, or let's say sabotage techniques, ambushes, and so forth. Also, it is very costly for the Israeli side. I mean, they have destroyed Gaza, but they have not destroyed Hamas. Hamas is weakened. This is a fact we have to recognize. However, Hamas still is not destroyed, given that most of its military figures were assassinated, at least the public or the officials one, were assassinated or killed by Israel. However, still Hamas has to some extent the force on the ground or in the underground. And Hezbollah is much more has experience and sophisticated, trained than Hamas, and much more rockets. I mean, today the rockets reach to 80 kilometers deep in Israel. It targets Haifa and other strategic areas. They target also military bases, air bases. So basically, Hezbollah is not opening all its cards. We don't know. So things how will develop. As I said, land invasion is very risky for Israel. Maybe this is something Hezbollah wants, to create a new deterrence, but still it's early to judge.
And I know you said it's too early to judge, but that sort of maybe answered already my question, but I'll ask it anyway. How serious was the damage to Hezbollah's command and control capabilities so far?
I was just watching on Lebanese media, a former, I think, military commander. He said that actually the command and control was not affected because most of them, they were not the ones who were using these pagers or other walkie-talkie communication means. So I'm not expert in this issue. I don't know if it's... I can say that the military hierarchy was definitely affected, and this was a heavy blow. But at the same time, I'm not sure whether its command and control structure was impacted or affected by this damage. I mean, maybe my assessment is also dependent on how much Hezbollah is able to retaliate against Israel, and as long as it is launching rockets today, more than 100 rockets they launch against Israel. So basically, it seems that still they are able to launch rockets and also new rockets against Israel.
So today, Israel actually hit targets in Beirut. You and other contacts have reported that Israeli Air Force is buzzing Beirut almost on a daily basis. My question on this is, what can Lebanon do? What's the state of the government in Beirut? Is there a functional government to decide on the national response strategy, whether that is through the UN or on the ground or through regional partnerships or whatever?
I mean, at least the Lebanese politicians and the politicals can do is now elect a president. This is something we need the head of state when it comes to organizing, negotiating, everything. Now our prime minister, he's in New York with the Lebanese delegation. I mean, the Iranian president also gave an interview to CNN. He made clear that actually Iran is not in favor of regional war. And there were also a lot of questions by some pro-Hezbollah experts and or pro-Hezbollah politicians, if we can put it, accusing the current Iranian leadership that as if it's abandoning Hezbollah. Again, this is very early to say that because I believe that Hezbollah is very important for the Iranian projection of power in the region, and also it's one of the successful projects of Iran to some extent in the region, given that Hezbollah sometimes has its autonomy, especially when it comes to domestic politics. So abandonment is a big word. But of course, eventually there are interests, and middle power countries, they also want to secure their own interests. The Lebanese government, again, I think they are doing their best to engage in indirect talks, engaging with the Americans, maybe with the Russians, and also engaging closely with the French, because the French, most probably, they will try to submit a resolution to the UN Security Council resolution, draft bill about calling for the implementation of 1701 resolution. I think this ceasefire would be a good option. However, the question is that how much Israel will abide by its ceasefire. At the same time, Hezbollah should also be aware that, it cannot go to a direct war against Israel, because this will be very costly for the country, which is still we are suffering the economic collapse from 2019. And the financial crisis, of course. And also now we have a lot of IDPs. We are talking about at least 120,000 IDPs from start of October 7 until yesterday, where the number increased.
Yeah. You answered my question partly, which is how much of a red line is an Israeli land invasion for Iran? But global power US is sending ships to the region, and it seems to be also on a footing for a new war, this time in the Middle East. How likely is US involvement directly in Lebanon? And I guess, is this dependent on Iran's involvement?
I mean, basically, from the US interest, the Americans also cannot alienate the Lebanese, saying that 100% they support Israel because they have interests in Lebanon. This is also important. So it is not in favor also the Americans to have another huge regional war or another front in Lebanon, given the fact that after 1 month or something, we have US elections. So the Americans already failed in Gaza. They even couldn't pressure Israel, their junior ally, to agree on a ceasefire. So if they fail also in this negotiation process, then everyone would say that, okay, look, the Americans are no more dictating terms. So small states like Lebanon or other countries, they will move towards, say, other great or rising great powers such as China. Let's not say Russia, because Russia is already involved in a war, though it has certain leverage in the region. But China maybe can engage in another ceasefire, especially when it comes to reconstruction of the damaged areas, whether in South Lebanon, in Gaza, maybe in the future, but also maybe in Israel, because China wants to have a balanced relationship with all the players. So from the American side, it's also for their prestige and image, they have to break a ceasefire agreement. Well, the Iranians, the question is that the red lines and the Iranian, especially the foreign policy of the current administration in Iran, they made it clear that they don't want to close the doors with the West. Instead, they are eager to make a rapprochement with the West. I mean, especially when it comes to nuclear talks, to revive them. And I'm not sure that the current Iran administration wants to sacrifice its rapprochement attempt with the West for the sake of Lebanon. Because today, I mean, in his recent interview, the Iran president, he said that we don't want to turn Lebanon into another Gaza. So basically, they have acknowledged that maybe most probably their strategy failed in Gaza, and now Gaza is razed to the ground.
Yeghia, where is France during this conflict?
Of course, there is this, the historical, the French and the Maronite ties, the French-Lebanese ties. It plays to some extent important role. Also, Macron always wants to play this balancing role and try to at least maintain his position, or what is left of the French influence in the region. The question is that it's good that the French, they have a back channel. I mean, even today, the French foreign minister or the special envoy, I think he met the representative of Hezbollah's parliamentary bloc. And this is something good that the French, they have, unlike other Western countries. But the question is that how much the French they have leverage on the Israelis. I'm not sure that the French alone, but even the Americans. We saw it in Gaza. Actually, they couldn't impose a ceasefire. So the question is not just convincing the Lebanese or the Lebanese side or Hezbollah for a ceasefire, but also the Israelis. And so I'm not sure if the French would have this flexibility when it comes to leverage.
Hovik, let's just take a moment here. We'd like to remind everyone to go to our donate page, podcasts.groong.org/donate, and consider buying us a coffee or two, or better yet, become a sustaining member of Groong and give monthly.
We like to believe that we are unique in the category of Armenian podcasts. We digest Armenian news weekly and bring you interesting discussions relevant to it. We've always been a labor of love, and we're not only nonprofit, but we're also non-budget. Just 2 to 3 friends who have committed our lives, time, and effort to understand the world around Armenians and sharing that understanding with you.
Of course, we will continue our work as we always have, but we are stronger with you than without you. Your support will help us expand our reach to more people who are interested in Armenian news and affairs around the world.
So please visit our donate page, podcasts.groong.org/donate, and consider supporting us. Thank you in advance. We appreciate your listening to us and take that trust and your support very seriously.
Thank you.
So Israeli propaganda is aimed at regular Lebanese, whatever that means, to say that, you stay out of the harm's way and our only target is Hezbollah. And once we finish with Hezbollah, you can safely return to your homes, etc., etc. And we know that prior to October 7th, support for Hezbollah was debatable. There are certainly some groups like the Sunnis and the Maronite Christians who maybe disagreed with Hezbollah's agenda of directly attacking or antagonizing Israel. Do you believe that today Hezbollah support is higher than after October 7th?
It depends. I mean, of course, always there was a segment of Lebanese who were against Hezbollah. Some considered it as illegal militia, like Iranian proxy. So, I mean, Lebanon is it's very sectarian, very diverse. There is diverse opinions politically, religiously, and so on. And sometimes I would always say that each community has its own foreign ministry in Lebanon. So basically, we have 18 foreign ministries in Lebanon. Of course, also a lot of Lebanese were against Hezbollah's involvement in October 8 when Hezbollah announced that it's opening another front in order to help the Palestinians in Gaza. Because they were concerned, and also given the financial crisis, they were concerned that Israel would retaliate and so on. And still, we have the same voices saying that this was a major mistake and Hezbollah should engage in a ceasefire and not reopen the front. But at the same time, there are other people are saying that no matter what we do, Israel would attack us. And they are saying that, okay, guys, we're saying that Hezbollah has been directly involved in this war in October 8th. What about from 2006 to 2024, when every day Israeli drones and jets were violating Lebanese airspace? So it's as if the violation was not impacting our skin directly. So basically, we should be we should not criticize or we should not raise our voice against Israel, even though sometimes Lebanese government, they raise this alarm or concern to the UN Security Council and so forth. But of course, it was meaningless. So basically, we are in this position. There are 2 opinions. I don't want to justify any opinion, but there are these 2 opinions, and always these opinions will remain because the country is divided politically and from sectarian also perspective. So yeah, this is it.
But in general, do you believe that there's more or less, or maybe it's you're saying it's ambiguous, but there's more or less support for Hezbollah in Lebanon?
I cannot say more or less because the problem is that there is no concrete census in Lebanon. My answer would be just an assumption. Can be also emotional, cannot be accurate. So at least in the Shia community, we see the following. Of course, some people are frustrated. It's very normal. They lost their property, house, gardens, a lot, their family members. While on the TV, you're seeing at the same time another image, which, for example, the wives, the widows, the friends, they are saying that, yes, my husband, brother, sister has been martyred. And this is our path, the path of the martyrdom. And this is part of the ideology of Hezbollah. This resilience and the resistance ideology against the Israeli occupation, injustice, and so forth. So these two opinions even are in the Shia community.
Okay, well, finally, let's touch on the Armenian community situation in Lebanon area. First of all, can you give us a quick update on when you mentioned that Lebanon is still reeling from the economic crisis? Are you guys coming out of it at this point? And how?
In the last few months, maybe Lebanese tried to take some oxygen, or this was even before October 7 war. But now it may become worse, given that the number of tourists that entered Lebanon was very limited this summer. So basically, the precaution we will feel it in the coming months. The prices would definitely increase because a lot of people are now going to pharmacies, purchasing medicines, medical needs, just food or something. So definitely, I'm afraid that prices will increase and we may go back to 2019 status where everything so everything was limited options and so on. And also given the bombing, a lot of people going to hospitals injured. So also the capability of this hospital and medical institutions to address the needs of the people will be limited. So this would create also a lot of other problems. So this is the concerns of the Lebanese, and of course the Armenian community, which is part of this society. Of course, now the schools are closed until Friday or Monday, I think.
Is that all over Lebanon or just the south of
Yes,
Lebanon?
all over Lebanon, if I'm not mistaken, because the bombing is not just limited to the south, but also Bekaa, the east. I think it was yesterday or the day before, even Mount Lebanon and the north were bombed. Even some Christian areas were bombed. So it's not just about limited and so on. And I think going back to the early questions about that, the Israelis are talking about this pretext that every building is target or civilians should be warned that if they have there is any Hezbollah missiles in the building. Why Hezbollah would put missiles? Again, I'm not defending Hezbollah. There are a lot of things maybe I would disagree with them, but the ideology or the mentality of a guerrilla organization is that you put your missiles in a very places where there are not civilians, in caves, in underground tunnels, because missiles can detonate. It's very risky. So you cannot just put it under the building or something. So this is a pretext, I think, for Israel to destroy anything and justify it that look, there is Hezbollah weapon and arms there or spot, so we have to bomb it.
Right.
And there was evidence of, I'm not sure how verifiable this is, but there was evidence of they were using flares to make it look like it was, secondary explosions.
Either it can be, I don't know, fireworks. Again, I'm not a military strategist, or they were real arms or real arms from the 2006 war, mines and so forth. So again, I just saw the video, but I cannot comment on that, whether it's real or fake or some other weapon maybe that can be blown like that. So I would take reserve on that issue.
So how is the Armenian community living through this?
Like all the Lebanese, even the Armenian community should be prepared for the worst case scenarios. That is, for example, if the infrastructure of Lebanon is bombed. The Americans at least trying to say to the Israelis that the infrastructure is a red line and civilian areas are red line. Today there was a cabinet meeting in Israel about this issue, so I'm not sure what has been discussed and so forth. But if Israel bomb our infrastructure, especially the airport, the port, and so on, so this will bring economic catastrophe and humanitarian catastrophe on the whole Lebanese people, not just the Armenians.
Do you think that the deterioration of the situation could lead to a mass migration from the Armenian community out to somewhere? And I don't know where they would go. Would they go to Armenia, Europe, US? Where else?
Not just from the Armenian community, but the Lebanese community, especially the young people who struggle to stay here with their families. And some they wanted or insisted to stay in Lebanon because they believe that we have a future in this country. We have to rebuild because it is our country. I always say,
Absolutely.
a lot of people would say that, okay, why you go out? I'm like, maybe I'm wrong. I don't know, but this is like my country. And despite all the odds, Lebanon did its best to host the Armenian refugees and so forth. So I have a belonging here. I don't know if I'm making the good or bad decision, but at least this is my position for now. And a lot of Lebanese young people like me are thinking that this is like a dark cloud and it will pass.
Let's leave it there for today. Thank you, Yeghia, for joining us on such short notice again.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, that was our show today. The episode was recorded on September 24, 2024. We've been talking with Yeghia Tashjian, who is a regional analyst and researcher based in Beirut with expertise in China's geopolitical and energy security interests in Iran and the Persian Gulf. Currently, he's an instructor in international affairs at the American University of Science and Technology and international affairs cluster coordinator at the Issam Fares Institute for Public Policy and International Affairs at the American University of Beirut. For more information on the participants in this episode, check out our show notes at podcast.groong.org/episode number.